Great, right, we are live and you caught me in the middle of a big slug of water there. Welcome to week 3 of Best Year Ever. And this week I'm going to do a little bit of a recap and it's going to be open for some questions. I've had a couple of questions so far. We might get some questions during the session. If there's any questions come up after this, please feel free to ask them in the group or send me a PM, ask me privately. I probably will share the answers in the group though, even though I'll do it anonymously because it won't just be you that they help. I've said before, it won't just be you that they help. I'd love some feedback as we're going through this class. You know, this is week 3. We've got one more week to go, so I'd love some feedback. I said in the first session that this is the first time I've done them in the form of Google Hangout where I'm on the screen talking to you. I'd love to know how that works for you. I know there's always a little bit of a lag when I'm watching my mouth. It doesn't sort of sync up to what I say. That's just a thing with Google Hangouts. So sometimes I think they can look slicker when we've got a presentation on screen. But I like the fact, you know, I like when I can see somebody, even if they share their screen as well. So I'd love some feedback about that. Last week, obviously, things didn't go to plan, and we did I pre-recorded it so that you could go in and listen. I mean, how was that? Would you prefer it to be live? Or do you like the fact that you can just listen anytime? Is it not important that it's live? Do you know, is voice only fine? Is it easier because you can download it if it's voice only? You can download it easier. I mean, you can download these as well, but you can download it more easily if it's voice only. So I'd love some feedback. I'm hoping to make them look a little bit better. My lighting's a little bit dingy, especially because it's 7 o'clock at night here. I know we have some people who aren't in the UK. I was talking to a client who was in California on Friday evening, so it was the morning where she was, and it was just so bright and sunny there, and it's never that bright and sunny where I am. And I was a little bit jealous, but I'm going to get some new lighting, so that'll make everything look fantastic. Set things up a little bit better so the lighting's better. But I would love some feedback. For me, it's not all about things being perfect. It's about getting things done, and that's one of the common themes that has come up in coaching conversations for me lately. People often feel stuck. They feel like things have to be perfect before they can move forward, and I don't think things do have to be perfect. I think we just have to take the small steps and gain momentum, and we learn from whatever we're doing, whether we're taking big steps or small steps. We're learning from whatever we're doing. So it's not about things being perfect. It's much more important to get things done. But I'd like to start by just recapping what we went over the first 2 weeks. So in week 1, we looked at the 8 key areas of life, and we looked at where you are now with those key areas, as well as where you want to be. So you rated them on a scale of 1 to 10. And the reason we look at 8 key areas, even though you may have a particular area of life in mind that is particularly challenging for you at the moment, the reason we looked at all 8 is because there has to be a balance. Some people talk about you can't have everything. Some people talk about you can't have whatever you want, but not all at the same time. For me, it's more about choices. We have to balance them. We have to make choices, but we have to feel good in as many areas of our life as we possibly can. There's no point, if you've got a business, there's no point working 20 hours a day to be successful in business if actually you're just going apart from your loved ones or you're making yourself ill. If you have a job, you work in a job and you are taking work home and you are making yourself ill and you're not having quality time with people at home, again, you know, that might mean you're ready for promotion. It might mean you're top of the list for promotion when a promotion comes along. Is it worth it if you're not actually happy and balanced in the other areas of your life? So the areas might be out of balance short term, but as long as you have an awareness of the overall, like a helicopter view of the overall area, the 8 areas of your life, then I think we can start bringing them more in balance, and we might need to concentrate on more on one area at a specific time. But yet we need an awareness. We can't just concentrate on 1 or 2 areas to the total detriment of another one. So we also looked at so the 8 key areas of your life. You looked at where you are now and where you want it to be. And then you made a decision about what you wanted. You chose one area. Some people picked 2 areas, but you made a decision about what it was you wanted in a particular key area. You looked at why you wanted it, and that could be related to pleasure. It could be to move towards something that's pleasurable, or it could be to do with pain. It could be moving away from something that's painful. And things might change. You might be moving towards something that's pleasurable, and all of a sudden life throws a challenge at us, and it becomes more about moving away from pain. Either way, whether it's pleasure or pain, it's a motivator. It's something that's driving us, and you need to know why you are focusing on that area. So sometimes we've really got to tune into the pain or the pleasure, whichever one it is, to really get clear on your why. Because if you're not clear on your why, it's very easy to just lose track, to lose momentum. And we looked at the how as well. So the how was in week 2. So it was a three-step strategy to decide what we wanted to do. The what we wanted, why we wanted, and how we were going to achieve it. How we were going to achieve it, we looked at in detail in week 2. And we looked at what you're thinking about this area. So that is the beliefs, the things you're telling yourself. You don't even realise you're telling yourself certain things sometimes. They are just the beliefs that are very deeply ingrained sometimes. If you're aware of them, great. Sometimes it is easy to challenge and change them if you're aware of them. But often those beliefs are so deeply ingrained, we don't even realise that they are there. I had a session with my coach on Friday, and it was very powerful. And she said something to me which really got me thinking and really made me see, I know about a lot of the beliefs that hold me back, and I work on them to move forward, and I'm constantly uncovering new ones. But she asked me a question, and I just thought, wow, yeah, that's deep. And you can tell when something goes deep because it has an emotional link for you. So there's always beliefs that we can uncover and help us to move forward. It's not about ever being done. We can't just reach in and pull out that core issue and make everything okay. It's always changing, evolving. We're always growing. So the beliefs are what you think. Goals, setting goals are about what you see, whether you share them publicly, so you're telling people you're going to do it, or whether you're just saying to yourself, making a commitment to yourself. You're setting goals. You're making a commitment that these are the things that you're going to do. We looked at characteristics of highly effective goals, and we also looked at how to take action, what you needed to do to take action. So before we get into the Q&A bit, I want to, and I forgot to ask if everybody could hear me, so just take 30 seconds or so to hear the results. So I'm just going to ask if just to make sure you can hear me and see me, just type in the chat box, and before I whittle on any more, I'll just make sure that people can actually hear me, because I forgot to do that to start with. So let me see. So before we move on to the Q&A side of things, I want to just share something with you that I'm going to put in the Facebook group. It's not there yet. I did try and upload it before we started, but I uploaded the wrong document. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to talk you through this goal setting action sheet that I'm sharing with you. Some people will not like it because it will seem too much like homework or being at school or whatever. If you don't like it, if you're more of a visual person, it doesn't matter. Just do whatever works for you. But I'm going to share this goal setting action sheet because it's something that some of my clients like. Some of them, like I say, prefer mind mapping or whatever it is. It doesn't matter how you do it. It only matters that you get something down on paper, so you've got the accountability. You can move forward with that. So the action sheet that I'm going to share is here. So actually I need to share my screen. So just figure out how to share my screen. Right, you should be able to see my screen now. So this is the annual goal setting worksheet that I'm, like I say, I'm going to put in the Facebook group. And this is going to help you to set your goals for the year and to focus them down into smaller chunks. So I'm not going to go over the background or too much into the instructions. We've done a little bit of the brainstorming. So we've done, when we did the 8 key areas of life, that was a form of brainstorming. You can do the brainstorming again. You can also pick this goal, although it says annual goal setting worksheet, you could pick this up at the start of a quarter. You could use it at the start of a year. You can use it whenever you want. Whenever you feel like you need to get back in touch with your goals or reconnect with your goals, or you need to refocus, you can use this. So you've got a section, first of all, for the brainstorming of the things you want to be, do, and have, and be thinking about them in the 8 key areas that I shared with you. So when you're doing something like this, when you're brainstorming, I want you to think outside of the box, and you can list everything you want to have in the next 1 to 5 years. So, you know, you might be going through something particularly challenging right now. What do you want in 5 years' time? You know, your world, the world's at your feet. What do you want? If everything goes to plan, what do you want in 5 years? Get creative, start thinking differently. Don't place any limitations on it, and make a list of those. You can use a separate piece of paper, a journal, anything you want to note all of these down. So you can just use these questions as indicators, as guidance. So part 2 is about really refining those ideas. Again, we've done this in specifically in part 1. So this, you might fill in the workbook as if you've already done part of it. If you've missed the first couple of sessions, don't worry about catching up. You can watch them if you want to, or you can go straight to this action, to this goal setting worksheet if you want to. There's no right or wrong. The only wrong is not doing anything. You signed up for this for a reason. You wanted to be part of this for a reason. You wanted this to be your best year ever. And it doesn't matter what place you're in now, however stuck you're feeling or however lost you're feeling, it doesn't matter. Every day is a new day. Every day is another day for you to get started again. So wherever you are now, it's fine. If you haven't picked the ideas you want to work on, that's fine. Do it now. If you've already got them, transfer them into this goal setting worksheet. I asked you to work on 1 or 2. This asks for 5. That's fine. This is about the things that you want to work on over 1 to 5 years, rather than just about being the next month. But this month, this best year ever month of January, I really wanted to go forward with some sort of a plan. So now that you have refined your ideas and worked towards where you want to be and 5 potential goals, I want you to make sure that they are exciting to you. So there's some questions there to think about. How exciting is this goal? If it's 1 out of 10, it's not exciting. It shouldn't be on there. It might be on there because it's something you think you should do. If it's something you think you should do, forget about it. You just banish the word should from your language. Who says you should do something? Who says you've got to do that to have a successful business or to get promoted or to have more balance in your life? Life's supposed to be easy. You know, we compare ourselves to others, and that's one of the things I'm going to talk about in a little while, how we compare ourselves to others. So if they're not exciting goals, take them off there. Ideally, they should be between an 8 and a 10. If they're lower than an 8, the chances are you are not going to achieve those goals because you don't want them enough. So once you've got the 5 there, it's about setting 3 that are aligned with your values. They're stated in the positive, and again, and they're also specific. And again, I covered that in week 2. If you want more about effective goal settings, I have covered that. So why are you going to bother? That's, again, it's about getting in touch with why you want this. Do you want it enough? Do you want it for the right reasons? Do you want it enough to maybe step outside of your comfort zone or start stretching your comfort zone? And when are you going to do it by? It's important to set a date. It's not important to always achieve that date, but it is important to have something to work towards. Things will go off track, but if you've got something to work towards, that is a great starting point. So always put a date on your goals. And how will you know you've achieved them? In the end column there, how will you know you've achieved your goal? If you've set effective goals, the result will be measurable. So make sure you know what the end result will be. Otherwise, it could be a goal that just drags on, drags on, drags on. So you want to be able to measure it. You want to know when you've achieved it. And preparing for success. This is, it's important to know what prepares us or what gets us in the mind frame of success. I talk a lot with clients about success habits, and different people have different success habits. For some people it's journaling, some people it's gratitude, some people it's meditation, some people it's going running, some people it's having a very strict time management plan, a very strict diary. Some people it's about what they eat. It's about making sure you are being the best possible person that you can possibly be, so that when you go off track, it's easy to get back on track, because your mind is healthy, your body is healthy, you've got good processes in place to fall back on, even if you get off track. So what can you stop doing, or what can you start doing? What can you do more or less of that is going to help you achieve your goals? So for me, one of my goals was to run a half marathon. So success accelerators for me, first of all, to start walking more. I didn't want to go straight into running because it's a long time since I've done it. So to start walking more and to stop eating rubbish. I'd got back into bad habits of charging my energy with coffee. So I stopped doing that. So what can you do more of? What can you do less of? What can you stop doing? What can you start doing that is going to help you to achieve your goal? Maybe if you are the kind of person who doesn't like to have a fixed plan in place. This is one of the things that came up during the week with a client. She knows she should have a plan in place, or she feels like she should have a plan in place. And there's that should word again, but she was judging herself because she didn't have what she thought was the right kind of plan in place. Because she was judging herself, she didn't have any kind of plan. And that just kept her stuck and overwhelmed and telling herself that she was a failure. When actually, the plan, yes, you do need a plan, and it's something I talk about in my iPower formula. We do need to plan. And we do need to look at the progress we've made, but you have to have a plan that resonates with you. And for some people, that will be a really detailed plan. And for other people, it will be a much looser plan. And I'm the kind of person that doesn't like to be restricted, even if it's me restricting myself. So I've tried to do really detailed plans, and I know that they don't work for me because I end up rebelling against them. Even though it's myself I'm rebelling against, I rebel against them. So my plans now are much looser, and they have a lot of flex time in, they have a lot of free time in. And if I move things around, I move things around, but I try to make sure that, well, I always make sure I plan in me time for me, time to recharge my batteries. That's the first thing that goes in there. That's very important. But if I do want to move something around, I make sure, if I decide I want to do a webinar in a week where I've said I'm going to take a week off, I'll make sure that I take the time off at a different time. So I'll be swapping things around rather than just saying, right, well, I haven't got time to do that now. I haven't got time to take a week off. So I'll make sure that the elements of the plan are still there, even though I might juggle them around a bit. And to me, juggling them around just means I'm flexible. No judgment. I know a lot of coaches out there have a very strict diary. That doesn't work for me. So it's about what works for you. What can you stop or start doing that works for you, that feels right for you? If it feels difficult, then it's not right for you. It might feel uncomfortable because you're stretching your comfort zone, and that can be reframed, but it shouldn't feel downright, oh, this isn't for me, but I've got to do it anyway. So number 2, smash those obstacles. What could get in your way? What could sabotage you moving forward? So for me, one of the things that could sabotage me running a marathon is I don't train properly and I injure myself. So for me, I stop that by making sure I follow a training plan. Somebody else might sabotage themselves by, one that crops up is by sitting in front of the telly, having a tough day at work. It's something I used to do a lot of, having a tough day at work, a really challenging, stressful day at work when I worked in a corporate environment, having a really tough day at work, and I came home and I wanted to have more energy. So for me, I knew that meant going for a walk or doing something that would recharge my batteries, like having a bath or reading a book or catching up with friends. But I was so stressed out and miserable that the first thing I'd do when I'd get in the house is I would reach for a glass of wine and I'd sit down and watch telly and just totally veg out. It's all I had the energy to do. And that was me sabotaging myself, because I knew that wasn't serving me. I knew to have more energy, I needed to do different things. But that's all I could face doing. I was in this negative downward spiral, and that's all I could face doing. Before I could afford to work with a coach, I asked my husband to hold me accountable. He knew it wasn't doing me any favours. He would ask me to go out with him and take the dogs for a walk or whatever, and I knew that would give me more energy ultimately. But I was also like a bear with a sore head. So when I snapped, he would just leave me alone. When we had sat down and had an honest conversation, I said, I want you to make me do this. Nag me, it doesn't matter. Make me do this. Make me get off my backside and go out and do some exercise, or go out for a coffee with my friend, or whatever it is. I want you to make me do this. And he did. He held me accountable. When I could afford to start working with a coach, then that meant she could challenge me more so than my husband, because my husband, if I said, no, I'm not doing it, I can't be bothered, he'd shut up, because he knew he was going to get his head bitten off if he didn't. But a coach will actually challenge you and look at why you don't want to do that, what are you scared of. It usually comes down to fear. So there will be obstacles. Another way I've sabotaged myself is spending too much. I've always liked retail therapy, I suppose, and I still shopping is one of the ways I fill my bucket up. I love going shopping on my own, but now I don't need to spend loads of money, and I also don't need to do it as often as I needed to do it. I know I like that time to browse around the shops, to get a coffee and a sandwich, to maybe read a magazine on my own. That's what I love to do. Some people would prefer to do it with friends. Some people hate the idea of shopping. But a long time ago, when I was really stressed out, I had to spend money. The retail therapy thing involved spending money. It was all about getting home, unwrapping things. It was prolonging the excitement of the shopping trip. But actually, I didn't need those things. It just got me into a total pickle with money. So there was parts of it that were good for me, but ultimately it was just distracting me from things I really needed to do. It was distracting me from actually getting my head together and making the changes that I really needed to make. It was the same with reaching for a glass of wine, watching telly, but putting off facing what we really need to change. And what is the best advice you could give yourself to make sure you achieve those goals? And the way I encourage you to think about this is, if your son, your daughter, or even if you haven't got kids, a niece or a nephew or somebody else, if somebody came to you when you're older and wiser, 20-year time, whatever it is, when somebody came to you with the same challenges that you've got, the same goals and the same challenges, and they asked for advice, what would you tell them? Or what would the 80-year-old version of you tell you now? Because we have the answers within us. We don't do them, we don't always follow them because it's hard, but we have the answers within us. So what would you say to somebody else? What would you say to your daughter or your son if she came to you and said, Mum, I'm training to be a lawyer and I've spent all this money on being a lawyer and I thought it's what I wanted to do, but actually it makes me miserable and I really want to do something else instead, but it's scary. What would you say? Would you say to her, no, you've spent all that money on being a lawyer, that is what you're going to do for the rest of your life? Would you say you've made your bed, you've got to lie in it? Or would you say something different? You might not say walk out of that job now and go do something different. You might say, right, well, what can you do to start moving in that direction? But I suspect most of you wouldn't just say, right, I know you're miserable, but actually you've spent all that money on doing it. It's what you need to do. It's too much uncertainty to do something different. I think you would find ways to support them to move forward, not necessarily jumping from one to the other. That's not the right way, but to support them to make those small steps in a different direction, or even to look at why they're unhappy in their current job and what they could do to change it. So what advice would you give to either yourself when you were younger, when you're older, what advice would you give to yourself now, or what advice would you give to a child or relative of yours? And taking action, again, we looked at action you could take in week 2, and this is where I want you to commit to your 3 goals and the action you're going to take and when you're going to take them by. And you only need to pick one thing for each goal that will move you forward. And it doesn't have to be a great big scary step forward. Sometimes I'll talk to clients and I say, what's your first step? And they'll say, well, my first step is to design my website. Well, actually, if you haven't already got a website, that's a huge big goal, which needs to be broken down. Sometimes they'll say, right, my first step is to get another job. I hate my job. My first step is to get another job. Again, that is a huge step forward. What small step could you take? And if you're thinking in terms of I need to leave my job or I need to build a website, whatever it is, and they feel overwhelming, the chances are you're not going to do them. So break them down into small, manageable chunks. Can you do that? Can you see yourself achieving that relatively easily? It might be a stretch, but is it something you can do? Is it a manageable chunk? Support and commitment. This is a huge thing when it comes to setting goals, and this is a huge part of my job as a coach. So it's very easy to set goals. It's very easy to start taking action. It's not always easy to stay committed. So who can hold you accountable? I said, when I was really down with my job, really struggling with things, I asked my husband to hold me accountable. That wasn't ideal. When I hired a coach, that was much better, but we all have different circumstances. There will be somebody who can hold you accountable. It might be somebody in a Facebook group, it might be your sister, your mum, your husband, a friend, whoever it is. Who can hold you accountable, and how specifically can they hold you accountable? So don't just say, I want to do this, hold me accountable if I don't do it, because they don't know what that means. They want specifics. So you tell them you are going to do X next Tuesday and ask them to hold you accountable. If they don't hold you accountable, it's still up to you. It's still your fault. Maybe you need to find a new accountability partner. It's not an excuse if they don't hold you accountable, but it'll certainly help. So who's going to do it and how are they going to do it? And who will you have to be to achieve these goals? That's a very small sentence, can be seen as quite insignificant. But actually, that's a big one. Who will you have to be? And you don't have to be somebody else. This comes back to comparing yourself to others. You don't have to be somebody else. When we compare ourselves to others who are successful in doing whatever we want to do, that just leads to overwhelm. So it's not about which different person do you need to be. It's about tuning in to you and what feels right or wrong, and how can you turn those characteristics that are already within you, how can you turn them up? If you don't have those characteristics already, then you're probably trying to do something that doesn't resonate with you. But if you have, a lot of people tell me they don't have confidence. I can't do that, I haven't got enough confidence. Well, actually, if you've had confidence in another area of your life, whatever that will be, maybe you have confidence at work, but not in business, or maybe you have confidence in relationships, but not at work. If you have experienced a self of confidence in any area of your life, you know how to be confident, and you can tune into that in different areas of your life. Not always easy. It does mean expanding our comfort zone, but it is possible to do that. So what do you need more of? And it's not about being this person that you're not. It's about tuning into your inner power. And the end bit there is just a bit of a commitment. Are you committed to achieving your goals? And this becomes a contract to yourself effectively. If this is something that resonates with you, then there's a little goals summary sheet you can tear off and put up somewhere. If it doesn't resonate, you don't have to do that. You know, not for some people, just the thought process is enough. I think it's really good to make notes, especially that you come back to, and I think it's really good to have written goals. But you might not want all of the success accelerators and everything written down, or certainly that sheet there that I'm showing you might not be big enough to write everything down. So I've very quickly gone through that. I'm not going to spend any more time on it because I'm conscious of time. Just need to get back to the other screen. Nope. Right, hopefully I'm back and you can see me now. Right, so if you've got any questions, you can start typing them in the chat box on the right-hand side. But I'm going to answer some of the questions. A couple of questions I've already got. Just give me a second to have a sip of water and to check my Facebook group that nobody's posted a question there since I logged on. Right, so it doesn't look like we've got any questions in the Facebook group. Right, one of the questions I was asked, and one of the things I mentioned earlier is, how can I stop feeling overwhelmed when I see what everybody else is doing? And coincidentally, Marie Folio put a new video out about this topic as well. So I know this is a big one. We see what other people are doing and we think, well, what's the point? They're going to do it better than me. And whether we have a business, especially if we have a business, actually, that can be very, that can be very destructive when it comes to building a business, but also in the workplace. If you're employed and you have a job, comparing yourself to others will often mean that we're not going to put ourselves forward for things because we think so-and-so's got it more together and they can do a better job, or whatever it is. So comparing yourself to others is never a useful way to move forward. It's destructive, actually. And it's easy. I think it's a lot easier to fall into comparing ourselves to others. It's a lot easier now that we have social media, now that we can link to people all over the world. It's so much easier. It's always been easy to compare people at work, or to compare ourselves to sisters, brothers, older sisters, brothers, whatever it is, to people that we think maybe are being favoured by our parents or whatever. At work, we can see what other people are doing, and it's easy to compare ourselves to others. If you're online a lot now, it's even easier to compare yourself to others, because there's so many people out there selling what they do, or shouting about how successful they are, or sharing their new website, or whatever it is. And it's very easy to get sucked into that and thinking, well, they are so much more successful than me. What am I doing wrong? And there's no point even trying. But comparing yourself keeps you stuck in overwhelm. It lowers your energy. It keeps you in a negative downward spiral. And even if it's not a downward spiral, it keeps you in a state of stuckness. It's a heavy feeling. Comparing yourself to others is a heavy feeling. Whereas if you are loving what you're doing and you're having fun with what you're doing. There'll be a lightness about it, and there's never a lightness about comparing yourself to others. So what I'll do, rather than going over because Marie Forleo shared some great stuff. She had 5 tips for comparing yourself to others. And so what I'll do is I'll actually share the link to Marie's blog. But the main thing that I wanted to share, the last one she shared, could sound a bit airy-fairy, could sound a little bit woo-woo, but she talked about moving away from fear and towards love. And this is something that probably wouldn't have resonated with me if I'd heard somebody say that a few years ago. But now I think in terms of there is love, there is fear, and everything else falls in between. So you can hate your job, or you can hate the relationship you're in, or you can love your job, you can love the relationship you're in, but there's all stages in between, and you can go up and down that scale. And although I just mentioned hate there, for me, hate and fear is the same thing. It's the same sort of, it comes from the same place. Although we think, if we are thinking, I hate that person, I hate that job, there is a fear there. It's attached to fear. It might be fear that somebody is manipulating you into doing something you don't want to do in a relationship. It may be fear that somebody is going to leave you in a relationship. It may be fear that you're not good enough at the job you do, or you're not good enough in the business you run. So it stems from fear. And on the opposite end, you might not think of terms of being in love with your job or your business, but it all comes down to how we feel about things. And you can, if you're feeling in a state of love, if you love what you do and you're feeling in flow, if you're doing something that feels effortless, that comes from your peace, joy, love. It's all the same sort of thing. It comes from the same emotion. It's light. It's brightly coloured. It's the opposite end of the spectrum from hate or fear. So although it can sound a bit airy-fairy, a bit woo-woo, to think in terms of there's love, there's fear, and everything else falls somewhere in between, it means I can simplify things. When I'm thinking about things, I can simplify it. I can think, because our emotions are our emotions tell us everything we need to know. If we're feeling some sort of a negative emotion, we need to move away from something or towards something. So what is that emotion telling you? What do you need to move away from, or what do you need to move towards? Where are you when it comes to fear? How near are you to fear, and what can you do to move away from fear and towards love, even if it's just momentarily? So you might want to do something. You might want to do some public speaking in your business or in your job. You might want to stand up and do a presentation, and the thought of that might actually terrify you. That's coming from fear. It's coming from fear of making a fool of yourself, or fear of not being good enough, or falling flat on your face, whatever it is. It's coming from fear. How could you move towards love? How can you get into a state where you just are concentrating on something, a lighter feeling? So I know if I feel like that, if I'm feeling a negative emotion, and you can't always put your finger on that negative emotion, but if you're feeling a negative emotion and you're feeling stuck and overwhelmed, the chances are it's coming from a place of fear, and you don't even need to know what it is you're afraid of. But how can you move forward, even just a little bit, towards a feeling of love or peace or light or joy or whatever it is? And if it's something like doing your presentation, maybe it's concentrating on the feeling that actually I'm going to have achieved something. I'm going to have achieved something that I've been scared of for a long time, and I'm going to love the fact that I've achieved something. Maybe it is the fact that you and I'm not saying this is something you need to do. This is only if it resonates. something like public speaking. I don't think anybody needs to do it. If you want to do it, you can learn to do it. If you don't want to do it, you don't have to do it. You find something that resonates with you instead. But if you want to do it and you're afraid of doing it, it could be that you find a way to reward yourself so that it feels like an achievement, but the result isn't just about what happens in that hour-long presentation or whatever it is. It's much more than that. It's about the fact that you've given yourself credit for doing something. Maybe you can move slightly forward by delivering that presentation to one person, to practice with one person, so that will move you a little bit away from fear. Maybe it's visualizing success. That I think that's extremely beneficial, visualizing success in something that we're scared of. So if you visualize success, you will start to move away from fear. And it could still be scary, but you're moving away from fear slowly into something that feels better. So I'll share the link to that video. But if you spend a lot of time talking to other people, like you find yourself comparing yourself to, whether it's people at work or whether it's people on Facebook, stop it. It's a habit. You can stop it. When you find yourself doing it, tell yourself you're comparing yourself to others. It doesn't add any value. It doesn't add any value at all. It brings you down. You're doing it out of fear. You think you're missing out on something. You're doing it out of fear. Move towards love. Love yourself. Be proud of something you've done. Congratulate yourself for something you've done. But I just often give myself talking to, right, Juliet, stop it. You're comparing yourself to them. So that website looks great. Right, stop it, Juliet. You're comparing yourself to them. We are at the right stage for us right now. Don't compare yourself to somebody who's further down, further down the line at doing whatever it is you want to do. A lot of the time it's smoke and mirrors. Just because somebody's website looks great, it doesn't mean they are successful. It doesn't mean they have got it together. It doesn't mean they are happy. If you compare yourself to somebody who walks into a board meeting and they've got it together and they look immaculate, maybe you've got toast in your hair because you didn't have, you're in such a rush this morning with the kids playing up or whatever. If you're comparing yourself to somebody who walks into the meeting looking groomed and together and professional or whatever it is, you're not doing yourself any service. You're doing, you're moving towards fear again because you're comparing yourself to her and you're thinking, I should be like that, and you're putting yourself down. Well, actually, you don't know how she is when she goes home. You don't know if she goes home and she's got a husband who abuses her. You don't know if she's so stressed out and from keeping it together, from putting on the appearance of keeping it together, that she goes home totally stressed and in tears, and like I used to, hits the bottle. I mean, I was never an alcoholic or anything like that, but I did used to reach for a glass of wine as soon as I got home. Not every day, some days. So yeah, you don't know the real them. So don't compare yourself to them. Yes, we can model people and we can get ideas and we can look at people who we admire and think, how would they approach the situation? But don't compare yourself if you're putting yourself down. If you're not feeling empowered by looking at what somebody else does, don't do it. And it's just a habit. Talk to yourself differently. It's just a habit. I hope I've talked enough there about comparing yourself. We've got a question. It's not letting me scroll down the questions for some reason. Right, so what's the best way to review my progress? Finding it difficult to review my progress. I'm presuming you mean progress in setting goals. Well, this could be because when you're setting goals, you're setting those great big goals, which, yes, great big goals are good, but if you're not setting manageable action steps, those goals just become overwhelming, and we just get lost in overwhelming what we need to do next. So big goals are great, big scary goals are great, but make sure you chunk them down into manageable goals. And they may be 1 year goals, they may be 5 year goals, they may be 3-month goals, whatever it is, but chunk them down. So if you've got a 1 year goal, make sure you have milestones. So milestones might be smaller goals. You might think of them in terms of smaller goals. You might think of them in terms of it's a goal I want to achieve on my way to hitting a bigger goal. So let's just say you wanted to do a presentation and you wanted to do it. You weren't doing it because you thought it was the right thing to do. It wasn't about it being the next step in your career, unless it really was and your boss was pushing you to do it, in which case maybe you're not in the right career or you're not in the right job or whatever, or you need to have a conversation with your boss. But let's just say I talked to a client this morning who had been telling herself she needed to go out and do some public speaking, and that was the way she thought she needed to grow her business. And that is one way to grow business, but it isn't the only way. And if it's something that you never want to do, fine, don't ever put it on your goals list. But if it's something you want to do at some stage, then don't make speaking in public be your goal, or make it your 2-year goal or your 5-year goal. Your goal can actually be getting in tune with your message. So what is your message, or what is your, it could simply be about being more visible. That's what I talk to people about a lot as well, being more visible, finding your voice. Because one of the things that keeps us stuck and comparing ourselves to others is that we don't tune into the real version of us. We don't know what it is we don't know what it is we truly want. We think we want what is best for our family, or we want what we think we should be doing because of the education we've had, or what our parents teach us. What is it that the true you really wants, and what is it you're capable of? Because you're capable of so much more than you realize. So how can you move forward? So it might be about, your goal might be about being more comfortable, being visible. And although that might be a hard one to measure, you could set yourself a goal to, if you've got a business, it could be a goal to write a blog post, or to go into a group, and a Facebook group, and post about what you do. If that's something that you find difficult, that could be a stretch for some people. So that is about getting more goals so that you're more comfortable getting your message out there, you're less afraid of rejection, and you're moving towards ultimately that presentation. If it's in the workplace and your goal is to be promoted, your steps might be, your first step might be getting your CV up to date. It might be that, the thought of applying for a new job is so overwhelming that you don't even start. But actually, could you update your CV? Well, yeah, you probably could. That might be a big step. Could, if you haven't done a CV for years, could you ask for help? Could you ask for some advice from other people who've recently done a CV? Could you look on the internet and find some examples of what CVs look like now? Because I know they've changed a lot from when I used to do them when I was younger. So what small step could you take that would get you in the right direction? And how are you, so how are you measuring your success? Is your success about the results you get, or is it about the action you're taking? Because the results aren't always within your control. If you keep taking the steps, you're going to have better and better results. But make the results more about taking the action. So you are successful if you've taken the action that you've set out to take, rather than you've taken the action and you've got the result you actually want. Make it about taking the action. So staying consistent. How do you stay consistent? So so you've set yourself goals, and you need to take consistent action to get towards those goals. So if you don't take the consistent action, you don't actually find out if something's going to work. You don't improve what you're doing, so you don't get the results. If you're not taking consistent action, so for example, 10 calls one day, 0 the next. So this is from somebody who makes calls or contacts people as part of their business, and she wants to make 10 calls every day, I presume, but she's making 10 calls one day and none the next. There's a reason that you are doing 10 calls one day and none the next. Maybe it's because 10 calls is too many and you think you should be doing 10 calls because that's what successful people do, but maybe that just doesn't fit in with your lifestyle. You know, if you've got kids, if you've got a house to look after, if you've got a husband whose job you support, you know, you've got to drive your kids around a lot. Maybe 10 calls just doesn't fit in with the lifestyle that you want. A lot of people who are out there being successful and doing and telling people you have to do this, that, and the other, they don't always have a life to back it up. So the success for you could be starting off with two calls or 2 emails consistently every day. Instead of jumping in at 10, get consistent with 2 or get consistent with 1 and do that consistently. Or don't think you have to do it 7 days a week or even 5 days a week. If there are some days when it comes easier to you, do it on those days. And I deliberately don't plan client calls on a Wednesday. I know I need one day in the middle of the week, as well as Friday, as well as Saturday and Sunday, where I don't talk to clients. And I might work on my website or whatever, I might do other work as well, but I don't take client calls, because if I want to just take a day off, I know I can take that day off without any notice whatsoever, because I haven't got any client calls booked in. So when I first started my coaching business, I set myself a goal to have 10 coaches call them discovery calls or complimentary sessions with people, where you give them a taster of your coaching. And I set myself a target of 10 coaching calls or discovery calls a week, because that was, you know, I'd done a course and I'd been given a formula. I knew I wasn't going to be great at converting people to paying clients because I was new at it. So to get the number of clients that I needed to grow my business in the way I thought I needed to grow it, or I wanted to grow it, I knew I needed to have about 10 discovery calls a week. That just totally overwhelmed me. The thought of having to go out and find 10 people to talk to, and of doing 10 calls a week, totally overwhelmed me when I first started out. I mean, I think I've done 10 this week already now, because I go through stages where I love doing, well, I always love doing them, but I can do more of them and it adds people to my pipeline. But then I have to have a bit of a downtime after that. But when I set myself a goal of 10, that was overwhelming. And in the early stages, I never got 10. Now I know that 10 was too much. It was too big. It felt too heavy. If something feels heavy, there's something wrong. You need to move away from that. You need to move away to something that feels lighter. So it could be that you set yourself a goal of 1, 2, 3 calls a day. Maybe you only do it 3 days a week or 4 days a week. If you like the idea of doing 10 because you get into a state of flow, maybe you only do 10 twice a week or 3 times a week. What feels lighter? If you go a couple of days and then you slip back into the old ways, there's something wrong. Either you're setting yourself too high of a target, or the way you're doing it doesn't resonate. Maybe you're doing something that you've been told works, but it just doesn't feel right to you. So how can you chunk that down to something that feels better, even if it feels smaller? Sometimes we have to take a step backwards before we can move forward. Sometimes we have to make things smaller or simplify things before we can move forward. So I hope that answered that one. We're coming to the end of the. I'm just going to double check there's nothing else in the Facebook group. I know they sent me a message with some new questions. Feel free, if you've got any more questions or I haven't made myself clear or anything there, feel free to type into the chat box. Right, I've not got any questions about the webinar. I have got some PM, some personal messages on Facebook from a couple of people that are on the line that I haven't got round to answering yet. I must apologise for that. I've had a couple of days without internet, which has put me back. So I will get round to those today or tomorrow. I haven't got any more questions that I need to answer on the line. So I'm just going to have a sip of water. If you've got anything else you want me to cover, feel free to type that in the chat box now. Right, I know there's a little bit of a delay. One of the other ways to to stay consistent is to reward yourself. And it sounds a bit childlike, but actually sometimes bringing a sense of fun into things can be quite good. And if you're a visual person, it might not. If it doesn't resonate and it feels silly, it's not the answer for you. But we give kids reward charts, don't we? One of the simple ways to stay consistent is you come up with a spreadsheet, or you go to Staples and buy a kids reward chart or whatever it is, and you set your actions that you want to take, and you give yourself a tick or a star or whatever for every day you take the action you want to take. And if you only want to take it 3 times a week, you block out the other ones. But maybe it's something as simple as a list of the actions you want to take, no more than 5, preferably 3 or less, that you want to take, that are going to help you achieve your goals, and you give yourself a tick every day you do it. And if you get to the end of the month, or even the end of the week, if you're struggling to go to maintain things for a week, maybe you could start with the week and then go on to the month. So if you're struggling to maintain things, you give yourself a reward at the end of that week. Or what some people do is the thought of a reward doesn't necessarily motivate them. Maybe they're already quite good at self-care, or buying the shoes they want, or getting the manicure, or whatever it is when they want. But something like Marissa Murgatroyd is a coach that I really like. She teaches about finding your brand, getting in tune with your brand. And what she does when she wants to set a new habit and be consistent with something, she doesn't set a reward at the end. But if she goes a day without doing whatever she wants to do, or if she misses something that she wants to do, she will make a pledge that she's going to pay a donation of however much to I think it was a political party that she didn't agree with. So she didn't want to make a donation to this particular political party or whoever it was, but she made a commitment to her community. So if she held herself publicly accountable, you can do it with your husband, your kids, a friend, whoever, that if you do not follow through on these actions, again, it could be weekly, monthly, whatever feels challenging but achievable, if you don't take the actions, you are going to make a donation to whatever, or you are going to give away your favorite pair of shoes to that friend who's always had their eye on them, something like that. So maybe it's about staying away from pain. Maybe it's not moving towards pleasure or reward that drives you measure. It's staying away from pain, but putting it out there so that you have to hold yourself accountable. So that's another way to stay consistent. But I'm not getting any more questions, so I'm going to say goodbye in a second. If you're watching the replay of this, feel free to drop questions into the Facebook group or PM me privately, and I'll answer them publicly so other people can benefit. But after the call, I will upload the goal setting action sheet that I went through, and I will upload a link to that Marie Forleo video that if you find yourself comparing yourself to others, I think it's a really useful video. Just something to know we're not alone is beneficial. So I'm going to call it a night there. Good night. If it is night time there, if it's not, have a lovely day. But speak to you soon. Bye bye.